All right, good morning, everybody. Excited to be here to talk about the innovations in energy. As she said, my name is Zach Powell. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Cherry Street Energy. At Cherry Street, we're a renewable power company here in the city of Atlanta. We own, operate, and maintain our solar systems, helping folks go with clean energy or diversifying their energy needs through solar installations without the cost and complexity. I'm really excited to be joined today by three great guests here. We have Joanne Mello, Vice President of Corporate Sustainability at Southern Company Gas. We have Jill Evanko, President and CEO of Chart Industries. And then Dayne Delahoussaye, Director of State and Local Affairs and Fuel Programs at LanzaJet. Folks, welcome to the stage. Before we jump into the questions, would you mind giving a little bit of an overview of your role and a little bit more about your organization?
Sure. Good morning. So yes, as Zach mentioned, I'm with Southern Company Gas, and Southern Company Gas is part of Southern Company, a combo electric and gas utility business serving about 9 million customers, primarily in the Southeast, including Georgia Power here in Georgia. Southern Company Gas, we serve about 4.4 million of those customers to gas utilities located in 4 states. So we operate at Nicor Gas in Illinois, Virginia Natural Gas, Chattanooga Gas in Tennessee, and then Atlanta Gas Light here in Georgia. And so I have the privilege in my role in supporting the net zero and sustainability efforts for that natural gas business. And thinking about really the transition in terms of how we serve energy, clean, safe, affordable, and reliable energy to those customers we're privileged to serve. And so for us, Southern Company, we have a goal to be net zero greenhouse gas emissions from our enterprise-wide operations by 2050. And that includes our natural gas business. And so, as we think about that, it was really interesting hearing Dr. Gaddy talk right before this, talking about the fleet transition on the electric side. For the natural gas business, for us, that means how can we continue to make our infrastructure as efficient and, reducing emissions as much as possible from that infrastructure. So Pedro kicked us off this morning talking about all the efforts at Atlanta Gas Light to invest in our pipeline infrastructure to drive down greenhouse gas emissions. And a lot of the investments we've made for decades have really been focused on safety and reliability, but those have also had environmental benefits as well. And so as we think about that really efficient infrastructure, how do we continue to drive down emissions from our operational practices? That's really how we think about getting to our net zero from our operational perspective. We call that tighter pipes. But we really look at sustainability from a much broader perspective and thinking about the overall environmental impact of the energy that we deliver to our customers. We think about that from a full supply chain perspective. So, from an upstream perspective, we think about cleaner molecules, right? How can we influence the suppliers from whom we purchase our energy to ensure that they are reducing emissions as much as possible? And then we think about newer sources of energy to deliver through that really reliable infrastructure. So I'm excited to talk about things like hydrogen and renewable natural gas as being part of our portfolio solutions as part of that cleaner molecules pillar. And then finally, I would say from a customer perspective, customers, are at the center of everything that we do. How can we partner with our customers to help them use energy as efficiently as possible? So really taking a holistic look at our sustainability strategy, and excited to dive in more.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's great to be here. I'm Jill Evanko from Chart Industries. Chart is headquartered in the metropolis of Ball Ground, Georgia. And we are a New York Stock Exchange traded company with about 12,000 team members around the world. We design, engineer, and manufacture equipment and solutions for what we call the nexus of clean. We say clean power, clean water, clean food, and clean industrials. So we're able to provide solutions for a variety of different molecules, molecule agnostic, technology agnostic. So for over 158 years, we've been serving a variety of different end markets, ranging from traditional energy to hydrogen, LNG, helium, CCUS, water treatment, and more we're seeing that nexus, the interlinkage between those end markets, where in many places around the world, there is no access to power, let alone clean power, and in the same case, limited access to clean water. So we're thrilled to be able to help our customers to address some of the movement toward the energy transition. Various different geographies are at different points along that chain. We love seeing our customers choose from a variety of different solutions that we offer, and it's been really interesting the last 5 years, kind of the shift in the mentality toward how our customers are thinking about sustainability. And similar to what you just heard, not only can we help our customers achieve their sustainability targets, but we also have our own net zero targets by 2050. Looking forward to the conversation. Over to you.
Great, thank you. Good morning. My name is Dayne Delahoussaye. I'm with LanzaJet. LanzaJet is a company that is in the forefront of decarbonizing air travel. Specifically, we produce technology, deploy fuel, sustainable aviation fuel, which is basically jet fuel, but instead of it coming from fossil sources, comes from renewable, therefore lower carbon alternatives. And so our technology is actually first-of-a-kind plant alcohol to jet. So we take ethanol and convert that into jet fuel in Soperton, Georgia, just a couple of miles or a couple of hours down the road. So like I said, it's a first-of-a-kind plant that we have done in the world. We're very excited to do it. We had our grand opening earlier this year and in the process of making first fuel coming out. As I tell people, any day now, we're just getting it hot and ready to go and working out all the bugs of a first-in-kind one. But it should be any day now having first ethanol from our SAF produced from ethanol. I get my little cheat sheet here because we've got we don't do this alone. We've got a lot of partners that have come and invested in us. And they include, Group ADP, which is a big airline developer, airport investor, but then some of our old investors or original investors, I guess. ANA, Al Nippon Airways in Japan, Breakthrough Energy, British Airways, LanzaTech, Microsoft's Climate Innovation Fund, Mitsui, Shell, Southwest Airlines, and Suncor. So we've got a lot of really big name company partners who are invested in the energy sector and who are really supporting us in our journey to help decarbonize air travel by making sustainable aviation fuel more accessible and in more volumes for people.
Awesome, thank you. Joanne, starting with you, you had mentioned cleaner molecules and clean fuel, specifically some work with hydrogen. Can you share a little bit more about how that fits into the organization and your broader sustainability efforts?
Yeah, excited about this because, as I mentioned, there's a really opportunity to think about how do we leverage the infrastructure and the expertise of our business to, serve the evolving needs of our customers as we look to, where we're going from a clean energy future. And so opportunities around low carbon fuels like hydrogen and renewable natural gas present a lot of opportunities. First and foremost, we know customer needs are evolving. They have their own decarbonization goals. We think about the broader needs to decarbonize the economy and the role that those fuels can play, and excited to hear how all the panelists have a perspective on that. Thinking about things like energy resiliency, again, referring back to the kind of keynote here, there's a lot of growing energy demands. How can we continue to meet those demands and doing so in a resilient and reliable way? And then, of course, thinking about the opportunities for, economic development and job opportunities in these evolving spaces as well. So, from a utility perspective, I guess I would start with that sort of expertise and infrastructure piece. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for us to think about how we can serve in a production role for these clean energy molecules. So, on the electric side, we think about, renewable sources for production of hydrogen. For our natural gas business, natural gas, partnered with, things like carbon capture, renewable natural gas can be a feedstock for clean hydrogen. We think about our role as being kind of connecting those increasing sources of production with the demand from our customers. We talk a lot with our customers about where their interests are in this space. So, for example, for decades, Atlanta Gaslight has been a leader in partnering with our customers on their transportation needs for compressed natural gas, and now we're partnering renewable natural gas with compressed natural gas. Well, that expertise in building those stations and even some of the regulatory structures that enable customers to make those investments, there's a lot of potential for thinking about how do you translate that capability for new opportunities like hydrogen fueling. We think about in Illinois, we're engaged in a hydrogen hub project up there where we're working with some of our industrial customers that are looking to decarbonize their existing increasing use of natural gas, and the opportunity that we have to develop dedicated pipeline infrastructure to deliver clean hydrogen to those customers, and how can we bring those learnings across our business in all the states in which we operate. And then finally, I'll just say, Southern Company has really been, I would say, at the forefront of R&D and innovation in the energy space for decades. That is a core part of how we operate. And so we're really working across our business to think about how do we expand our capabilities. We're engaged in a lot of R&D projects in partnership with academic institutions like Georgia Tech, national labs, other industry participants, to make sure we understand, how do things like hydrogen operate in existing infrastructure? What is the compatibility with all of appliances and pipeline materials? And so we're excited to see how those R&D projects will, again, enable us to deploy these technologies as we look to the long term.
Thank you. Jill, at Chart Industries, y'all are leading the way, or focus on leading the way in different services and technology on the energy transition. Could you speak a little bit more about the work that y'all are doing at Chart?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll focus on the innovation and the technology side in the business. One of the things that we believe is that there's going to be a hybrid of solutions to the energy transition, and that there's a lot of innovation that is yet to come. So we take a view that we need to make private sector investment, and that comes in the form of minority investments in what we believe could be future technologies. We acquire technologies to bring them into the portfolio, and then we do R&D, as you just heard from Joanne. So that's kind of the way we think about it, not to wait on public sector decision making, but rather to be a leader in terms of making our own investments. And that has come in a variety of different ways, bringing technologies into the portfolio that are kind of futuristic. We call it next gen shit, and that's really around things like, you got, if you're looking at how do you take gas to liquid solutions, which is, our ticker symbol is GTLS, gas to liquid solutions, and how do you think about the molecule differently, and how do you take existing infrastructure or take methane and turn it into hydrogen? And those are the types of technologies that we look at and we try to foster so that we can get out of the discussion about cost and scale, which is a lot of what you hear. We also believe that innovation comes in investment in your own facilities and in your own capabilities. So we think of that as investing in things like the only liquid hydrogen test facility in North America belongs to Chart. That's in Minnesota. And we think of that not only for our own innovation and technology development, but also for our customers and our partners to come and test things in a safe environment. And we have multiple successes around the linkage between liquid onboard for hydrogen and fuel cell vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So that investment in the capabilities to work with your partners and customers in terms of infrastructure and manufacturing capacity is I think, as important as R&D and other kind of engineering innovation. I'll touch on just kind of two stories here. One is a success, and one is what I would deem to be not yet success, maybe failure. We made a minority investment in a company called Earthly Labs, which is a small-scale carbon capture solution. One of my favorite technologies that we now own. So we invested, we saw it work, we saw the commercialization, and then we went and we made the full acquisition. What we love about it is the fact that first of all, I love it because it serves the wine, beer, and distillery end markets. But this is around the clean food side of things. So it's a small-scale carbon capture capability technology that goes into, take a brewery, which emits CO2 in the making of beer, but needs CO2 to make beer. And so it's a closed-loop CCUS system. But what's so successful about it is that it's affordable, it's easily installed, and it returns to the operator. So the economics piece is super important. And I think that's a translatable lesson. And then on the kind of not success yet story would be a minority investment we made in Germany for a cryogenic hydrogen technology. And the reason it hasn't been successful is because it was really very specific to German code. So the geographic presence could only be in one location. And it was a very niche technology. So some takeaways that we've learned through our innovation and investment.
Thank you. Dayne, finally with you. LanzaJet's been in the state since 2014. You have won such awards as Bill Gates Breakthrough Energy Funding. Can you talk to us a little bit at a high level about LanzaJet and then sustainable aviation fuel as well?
Sure. So again, LanzaJet was originally, we had the genesis came from LanzaTech, which is a sister company of ours, an investor of ours, which has been in the state for quite a long time and is doing a lot of different technology things. But they're, again, a technology, a research firm, and they wanted to say, hey, we think this technology works. We want to spin this out and make it deployable as opposed to us sitting in the lab continuing to tweak and modify that kinds of bit. So that's really the genesis of LanzaJet. So that's how we ended up being kind of being partnered with them out in their Soperton, Georgia facility, which we're very excited to do. And again, what's cool about sustainable aviation fuel is it's jet fuel. It looks, it acts, it burns, it handles, it goes in the airplane, it goes in the engines like jet fuel. So in an effort to decarbonize the energy, we don't have to have Boeing or Rolls or Pratt come up with new engines or new airframes. We can take the existing ones and drop in a drop-in fuel, a lower carbon alternative to it, which is what's really exciting about this kind of technology, right? And again, I've told people, folks, that doesn't mean we shouldn't explore electric planes or hydrogen planes or whatever else that might be out there. But in the short term, this is a real low-hanging fruit opportunity to decarbonize that energy source. And that's why we're really excited about doing that. And that's how we've got some of those partners that we've mentioned out coming in and investing with us, showing how can we scale this up. What's unique about our technology is that, again, we're taking ethanol, which, again, the United States is one of the largest producers of ethanol. We have like 15 billion gallons of ethanol sitting around, and we can take that's already being produced in already stable industry and turn that into jet fuel. What's interesting about that is, again, as that technology emerges and they have better farming practices and better energy practices, so the carbon footprint of their ethanol gets lower, which means the carbon footprint of ours gets lower by extension. So we're doing a lot of cooperation with upstream ethanol producers, whether that be from corn, from sugar, from novel things, from trees, from landfill gases, whatever that might be. If you can make ethanol, then we can take it and turn it into jet fuel. So that's one of the really exciting things about us. And again, it's the Soperton facility, is ethanol agnostic, so it doesn't matter from where it comes. So as somebody can improve their farming habits or what type of the corn, what type of the tree, what type of the plant they're using, can really jumpstart us for that.
Awesome, thank you all. Some exciting work happening here. At Cherry Street, we're really excited. We're calling the transition from what we know as the grid today to Energy 2.0. And Energy 2.0 just incorporates renewable power on a structure that can support it. So as we saw at the keynote speaker, just diversifying the grid further with the energy needs. And also the state has innovated or evolved the way that electricity can be purchased back in 2015, allowing the private sale of electricity. So we're excited about the work to continue to diversify the grid and be a part of the overall solution. Dayne, since I ended with you, why don't we start with you on the first question here. Being at the forefront of innovation comes with both challenges and opportunities. Could you speak to us a little bit about what some of the internal process was, some of the things that you had to overcome and how you dealt with that internally?
Yeah, that's a great. So again, a first-of-a-kind plant is an obstacle, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't know a lot of times, right? We know the technology, we know how that works, but we're making fuel, right? And so then we've got how do we work with fuel distribution partners to get into their segment? How do we do with licensing and regulation? And we're taking ethanol, and the government likes to tax ethanol because people can get drunk on it, but we aren't using it for that purpose. So how do we figure out what we can do to make that industrial ethanol as opposed to taxable, moonshine, right? And I think that's one of the things we're always, those types of things that you never planned on when your engineers are in their, lab or whatever they live. I'm a music major. I count to 4 and start over again. So I don't understand any of this technology, so I'm doing the best I can. So these are not the kind of things they think about. The other thing that's really important is because it's a new novel technology, it is more expensive to produce, right? But it also has benefits. I like to tell our people in our company, but also externally, I don't sell jet fuel. I sell carbon reductions. Jet fuel is the thing that helps the carbon reductions get to where it's going. So what we're actually selling 2 things. I'm selling carbon reductions or scope emissions as well as BTUs to make your plane go. Airlines are used to buying one and not used to buying the other, and they're used to this price, and now I'm trying to convince them they need to buy a second thing as well too, right? So that is a whole conversation that's developing the market, both for the airlines that operate the planes and for the passengers and the cargo that sits in the back of the plane, right? They need to understand that they have an impact with how that goes. And so them as a society, as a, how do we build the utility of transportation, right? We need to build in that unintended or that unrealized sort of carbon cost with getting people and things places, and realize, okay, there's a cost that we've just been forgetting about, not really even valuing. We're just trying to get the lowest energy cost possible. We were talking about there. But if we're saying two things, I need to have offset that negative impact that comes with that energy, as well as the actual effort of doing it something, you're now buying two things. And that paradigm shift is slow, especially in a very competitive market where everyone's trying to get there. I mean, people will pay $5 less to sit in a middle seat and not check their bag, right? And that's just for regular fuel. How do we convince people that, yes, decarbonizing your travel when you go see grandma or when you go fly on your business trip is an important investment as well, too. So that's been one of the really obstacles as the conversation of decarbonizing energy and transportation fuel specifically.
Thanks, Joe.
So I would say that being a firm that engineering is at the heart of things, making sure that you say no at certain points in time in terms of development. One of the things that you can really get down rabbit holes and never come out of them and move things forward. So I think it's really important that you have processes in place to have stage gates and ensure that you're making good investments and spending the right time in the right places. I'm the poster child for letting things go too long in terms of engineering, because there's great ideas and great capabilities, but you have to kind of think about shareholder return as well, and at what point is this really not core to what you do, and that isn't going to be something that you're the expert, that there's other partners and collaborators that can do it better. I remember one of our engineering teams, they said we really need a liquid hydrogen cryogenic pump that can pump at 1,000 bar PSI. And this will be a first of a kind. It'll be a differentiator in the market. It will move fueling stations forward. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, right? And my daughter was 4. And I said, when is it going to be ready? This was like summertime. Christmas. So Christmas comes and there's no pump. When's it going to be ready? Valentine's Day, no pump. St. Patrick's Day, no pump. Easter, no pump. Following Christmas, no pump. Her 9th Christmas, my daughter's 9th Christmas, I still had no pump. And so I finally said no. And we ended up selling the IP to a partner that is a pump supplier, and they've done a great job with it, right? So we set up the relationship. So I think that the way to think about some of the challenges we face that we've learned from is you cannot be everything to all and to all end markets. And so ensuring that you know what you're really good at is super important to serving the transition well.
Thanks. Joanne, you want to close us out on that?
Sure. And great comments. I think, I mentioned sort of that we had this sort of long-standing focus at Southern on R&D, innovation, but, I think, as some of these evolving needs, we kind of saw this activity happening throughout the company, but then we started thinking about, like, organizationally, how do we position ourselves to ensure that we're set up to have a strategy around this, and thinking about, the piece around operationalizing sustainability, which is really, really important, as well as thinking about the customer solution side of it and making sure we were positioned to serve our customers. So, and I'm always interested to come to conferences like this, and because I hear from other organizations around how they've structured around sustainability. We created a sustainability department at Southern Company Gas spring of 2020, so it's been a little over 4 years. So we're still relatively new in our journey, but I really think it's amazing, and I think it speaks to the commitment of our senior management all the way down, that our team has evolved and grown to serve these needs around, I've team members in the audience here who spend every day now thinking about renewable natural gas solutions for our customers. And so that is really exciting to see how, as an organization, we've kind of come together around that. And then the other piece of it beyond sustainability is, what are the other key parts of your organization that you partner with to enable these things to be done in the right way for the benefit of customers. And a huge piece of that for us is investments that we've made around, our data, our analytics capabilities, leveraging things like AI and analytics partnering with technology solutions to help us, again, enable things that we're doing around safety and reliability, but also emissions reductions. And, a key part of our net zero efforts are, how can we better understand and appreciate what our actual, not just our estimated, but what our actual emissions are, where are the leaks on our system. And so we actually are deploying advanced leak detection technologies to help us identify that. But then the other piece of that is how do we pull all that data in and ensure that we're reporting it out in a very transparent way to all of our stakeholders. So for us, that's been a continuing journey and exciting to see how that can continue to support partnering with others around these important sustainability efforts.
Awesome, thank you. Companies worldwide are striving to hit sustainability goals, but you all represent companies that are at the forefront to enable that. Can you all speak a little bit about partnerships and collaborations happening internally and how that's helping drive the sustainability mission forward? Jill, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. So we're definitely believers in partnerships, as I just discussed in my last answer. But I think it's super important that, listen, you can open your news feed every day and everybody's announcing an MOU or a partnership agreement. I think it's extremely important that you partner with trusted partners, because at some point, you probably will end up not being in a partnership. And so there's an important way to think about why I'm doing it now. And at some point, there might be an off-ramp. So you have to have a plan for what that looks like. And I think the other important thing that we learned is tracking how partnerships turn to commercialization. And we're very proud to share that we have over 67% of the partners that we've signed up over the last 2 years that we have commercialized something together to our joint customers. So those are a couple of takeaways we've had from ours.
Thank you. Joanne?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on some of the opportunity. We can't do this alone, right? It has to be partnerships with customers. It has to be partnership with suppliers. I think about the industry collaboratives, even folks on the stage, Cherry Street and others, where we're partnering with folks to try to enable some of these opportunities and solutions. I think, public and private partnership is a huge piece of it as well. There's a lot of very exciting, funding opportunities out there right now from, the federal government with DOE. That's helping us enable some of the R&D work that we're doing. It's a huge catalyst for enabling some of these hydrogen opportunities through hydrogen hubs. And then, of course, we think about, from the R&D and innovation side, I mentioned some of the R&D partnerships we had, but also from the innovation side, Southern Company invests in some venture capital funds that are really trying to look to the near and long-term innovation needs and technologies for energy companies like ours. So we invest in energy impact partners at the national level to, first of all, help inform where those investments are going, but then also pilot and deploy those technologies in our business. And then even locally with venture capital funds like Engage. So I think that's another exciting way for us to kind of come together is, some of these things, as we touched on, there's sort of a need for scalability and cost reduction. So coming together both from a funding and a collaborative perspective is really important.
Thanks, Dayne. You want to close us out?
Sure, thanks. And again, thanks everybody for being here. And I think one of the things that's important is as we are, again, trying to develop sustainability as being part of a way of life, right? You can't do that just one guy telling that story, right? You need your friends to tell the story. You all need to sing off a similar songbook. And that applies not just across different industries integrated, it applies to different markets, different geographies, right? What we do here in Georgia is different than what we do maybe in Washington State, which is different than what we do in Europe, which is different than what we do in Australia, but we're all hitting different goals, and we all have different ways of accomplishing that. So being collaborative in terms of what worked for you in your market with your key interests, with your priorities, and then how can we collaborate and share those sorts of lessons learned and sort of best practices is going to be a really important part, because we really are trying to shift that paradigm. And again, that's something that you have to change one mind, and then that guy changes a mind, and eventually that'll balloon. But that's kind of the core of this journey that we're on.
Awesome, thank you all. Before the monitor starts yelling at me, because we are getting close on time here, I'd like to thank you all for the work that you're doing, spending the time with us this morning to talk about the initiatives at each of your companies. It's incredible work, and appreciate the insights today. So thank you very much.